Hey everybody, this is JDGaming, back today with a deck profile of Chaos. Now, I know it's been a little bit since the last profile. I explained everything I wanted to in this video over here, but basically, this was something I had planned for March, and kind of a side effect of spending all this time away from it was I got to play this deck over multiple formats with a lot of different mindsets as I played other forms of Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'm very happy with the ultimate result that we're sharing here that's gone through multiple revisions since that time. It should be a lot of fun for people who want to play around with the newish Chaos support that we got over the last year, as well as people who just love the theme from back in the past. It's kind of a fusion of old school and modern Yu-Gi-Oh, and it really is a blast to play. This will be a Let's Build as always, so I'll include my thoughts on why things are in here and kind of what goes through my mind as I play certain cards, what I might want to do with them, and considerations I have. If you just want to see the finalized list, you can use the table of contents down below or YouTube's own chapter system to take yourself to the end of the video where I have the usual alphabetical deck profile, but otherwise, we're going to go ahead and build this deck from the ground up. So without further ado, let's build Chaos. The first step in building a deck is to establish the theme and to build a core that supports the theme's goals. And here, we know we're playing Chaos, which means we need plenty of lights and darks in our graveyard, so we're starting off with a card that's able to do that just off its cost, In Charge of the Light Brigade. Assuming that goes off, we'll be able to hopefully search and activate the ignition effect of our Raiden, who will mill 2 more cards, and because that's so important, we're actually going to take advantage of the fact that he's a warrior to play Rhoda for effectively 7 copies of this one card alone. Now, one of the things I liked doing for Yu-Gi-Oh! Outside of the channel when I was off for a few months is read articles like I usually do, and I know there's statistically some numbers out there that say you really want about 5 normal summonable cards in your deck so that you don't draw more than 1 because those are dead cards. And yes, while that's generally true, in this deck, your biggest weakness with Chaos is when you draw a wonderful hand of all these big boss monsters that are free summons, but you can't play any of them because you don't have a graveyard, and Raiden single-handedly helps solve that by yarding 2 cards, and Charge helps give you a bonus on top of that. So you really do want to see this. I'd like to risk multiples of these sometimes if it means fewer games where I just don't draw any of these and I just auto-lose, which that's the biggest downfall for this in competition, is the fact that you're just giving away some free wins to your opponent when you brick, which is just the nature of Chaos. But that's not to say you can't have fun with this deck, because there's plenty this can do, and that's where we're about to get into. But, you know, realistically set your expectations, I suppose. Level 4 Tuner means we can combine it with one of these baby Chaos Dragons, which is very easy to set up with the single Raiden, and from there, you're able to make a very powerful play sequence. Do note these are mirrors of each other. They have to be summoned by their own effect. Unlike other Chaos monsters, you can't do anything weird to summon them after the fact, and they are a hard once per turn for summon, but they're limited anyway. When you summon one of these using the Raiden, you can synchro summon for level 8, and this guy happens to be generic. Probably my favorite single card from Rise of the Duelist. This Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon, on summon lets you excavate 5 cards from the top of your deck, choose a light or dark monster you find there to add to your hand, which is a free Chaos boss usually, and the remaining 4 go to the graveyard to be food for your summon. The cool thing is that effect is an if it's synchro summoned you can, just like this is an if it's sent to the grave you can. Both of those are in the same category of optional effects that have to trigger there at that time, and as a result, they will go on chain. So now, if your opponent has Ash Blossom or something that has to directly respond, you can choose Chain Link 1 your Synchro, Chain Link 2 your Baby Chaos, and now they have to hit this if they want to do anything. Of course, 𝗿𝗷𝗄 gets around this, but being able to make this a little bit more resilient thanks to these guys is really great, and this card doesn't lose all value if it gets 𝗿𝗷𝗄ed, because if it hits the graveyard at any point because you play it into something, you're able to go and revive it through just banishing light and dark like you would any other Chaos monster. That is a hard once per turn, and you can't actually keep him around if you don't Xyz him, because he'll banish himself when he leaves the field. But fortunately, in order to make Sangin bad back in the day, they're like, Xyz materials don't leave the field, they just become materials. So this card is basically going to stay around forever as long as you're able to turn him into a rank 8, which we will definitely take advantage of. Now, obviously, 2 copies is pretty good, but they are limited. But anyone who plays Dragon Link knows when you play Chaos Space, that's a non-issue. Now you have 5 ways, and you really want to draw the Chaos Space, because not only are you able to pitch a light or dark to set up your grave and then search the baby dragons, which are like your main targets 99% of the time, the Chaos Space recycle and draw effect is bonkers here, because now if you imagine, this is played in order to get you one of these. You make the same play we just showed, chain block and everything, and when you banish this Chaos Dragon to summon the other one, now you can return him to the deck with the Chaos Space to draw a free card, and then when this goes to the grave, you could still search this. You just can't play this guy twice per turn, but you can definitely add it to your hand as a free card, and then if you hit Chaos Space off of any of your other mills, or just play one next turn, you can keep the cycle going between these guys. So really, yeah, they're limited, but they're not really limited. As long as Chaos Space stays at a healthy number in the game, you're able to keep abusing these guys. So basically, this part thus far is really what made me want to play this deck in the first place, and it will lead to some really fun reasons that solidify that concept later. So, you know, we already have 2 really solid cards, basically 5 copies of level 4 monsters, but just to make sure we get something, especially off of Raiden hitting like a spell, because sometimes it happens, we play 3 Chaos Valkyria as well. This thing is like the Baby Chaos in that you need either a light or dark monster, so a bit more flexible there. Can be summoned with any card effect, so this guy can be banished and then revived or anything there. And when she's banished from anywhere, usually Chaos Food, you're able to Foolish Burial a light or dark monster to your grave, with the only restriction of that card can't use its effects that turn. But you could still summon it and whatever, which leads to some options. The most likely candidate for the Valkyria, if you haven't already seen it in any of the mills, is a copy of Gizmek Orochi, who's got a quick effect that lets you summon it both turns, basically, by banishing 8 from the top of your deck face down, and that will get stupid when we play our extra deck later. But 2450, solid body, level 8, so you can make your Xyz plays, even just with this in Chaos Ruler, if nothing else. And it does have a bonus removal effect, but just don't count on that being helpful, because again, you're trying to summon this with its effect each turn, and at that point, you're locked out of the other effect. But Gizmek's really, really good, and we'll talk about even more so why that is down the line. But for our next actual Chaos boss monster, we play 3, the Chaos Creator. This guy is just a great extender. It's just a regular Chaos monster, is able to go and summon one of 3 banished cards between either player, as long as they're different names. So that can even bring back like Chaos Valk, for example, because it is a card effect. And although that summon effect is a hard once per turn, this is the type of thing that shows how Chaos is a bonus type of strategy. Like, this is still a level 8 body even if you get effect failures. You can make your plays. If it doesn't get stopped, you get a free body, and then that's going to make your board even stronger later. So that's why we play 3. You want to draw into this so that you can spare your Chaos space for the baby dragons that are a little less likely to be drawn. And then, you know, solid dark target, probably one of the best picks for that Chaos space in case you already do have the babies. A light target you could play for that is BLS. We're playing 2 of this as well for similar reasons. This guy is amazing at removing what your opponent has already played if they go first, and it's extra powerful because when you throw the removal effect at your opponent and they hit you with a non-destruction like a 𝗵𝗷 Savage or an effect failure, now you have it on the field, just overlay with some other guy for 𝕮𝖄𝐻, he's more removal, so kind of scary there. Plus this is light and dark combo for Chaos as well. This deck is just really good at throwing a bunch of removal at your opponent, which is why I stopped playing Forbidden Droplet in the main. I just found I don't really need it. And if you're afraid of like Dragoon or something, if you play your Raiden or your Charge, you're probably going to get cards to your grave without your opponent negating. You just drop this and attack Dragoon, problem solved. So this card's really funny for that. And then sometimes he just does a lot of damage by attacking twice as well. And the last Chaos monster, I actually play this card less than any other card in the entire deck, only because it costs 3 cards to summon, and even though they are from the graveyard, it's kind of more like a win more situation, unless one of his 3 Swiss Army effects are so good that it's going to win you the game, like non-targeting destruction or reviving a guy that can still use its effect, which is awesome. This guy is, you know, okay. He's like so powerful, he's too good not to play, but at the same time, again, you're not really Chaos spacing him most of the time because you're trying to do Baby Dragon or your Creator. This is like the 3rd tier option, unless one of his effects is like the perfect thing you need at the moment. I play 2 of all these Chaos because Gizmek's already in here. I'll play Desires in the last half of this deck as well. And basically, you don't want to lose option to these toolboxes in case you banish a copy. But, you know, this card's still, it's kind of in the middle. It's not a bad card. Probably not your first pick, but will definitely make your games run a lot more smoothly when you have access to it in the deck. Now we're moving to finish out the main deck, starting with 3 copies of Danger Mothman. And when I started playing this in February, I was like, there's gotta be something better than this. But over time, I found out level 4 non-tuner Dark Monster pairs wonderfully with that first Raiden, because that's a light, this is a dark chaos summon right there. And in a lot of those instances where you draw too many chaos monsters, this is going to get you possibly a free body on board, maybe an upstart on top of that, and in the event it gets hit, it's going to give you a dark monster engrave plus a Dark World Dealings effect that's going to let you draw, discard a light of your choice, and it basically sets up more chaos summons that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. So overall, upstart goblin at worst, free extender, and unbricker at best. So very good card overall. It's like not absurd in any one way, but it's like generally good in everything that it does for this deck. Next, we have Pot of Desires, because basically anytime this would be dead, like, oh no, I don't want to banish the baby dragons, like, you're playing this either after you've already gone through the combo by searching and whatnot, or you didn't have it anyway, and it doesn't matter that you weren't able to access it before. But it helps unbrick certain hands, and in a lot of situations, you just play it as an extender, because now you draw 2 cards. They might both be chaos bodies, and that's going to wreak havoc on your opponent, whether they've gone or not. So that's why we play the 3 Desires. The drawback basically just never comes up really, and we'll talk about how the extra deck abuses it. And then for hand traps for the rest of the deck, we play 3 Effect Failure, because they're a very good generically useful light monster we can easily land in the graveyard. Similarly, 𝗵𝗵𝗍 is a dark monster, and honestly I feel like in general these days you could probably main deck this in a lot of different decks, but here it's a dark monster you can play as early as turn 1 if your opponent hand traps you, so it's extra good for that. So really loving 𝗵𝗵𝗍 in this strategy. And then the last hand trap is going to be the Cyframe Driver with the 3 Gamma. First note, this entire package is all light, so if you hit any of them, great, that's free food there. The driver doesn't even have to be in the deck, it can be in your hand or graveyard, so if it gets milled, great, your Gammas can bring it back. And then this thing basically I wouldn't normally consider in the same deck as Desires, but the way it plays out is you're playing both of them for their own strengths, and the chance of you having a situation where like your hand's bad, you drew Gamma off like your 6th card or something for turn, and then you need to play Desires and it ruins your driver before you were able to resolve the Gamma to play some other like spell card. It's so unlikely. You're more likely to break off of chaos cards in general, but the payoff of playing this is if you play your Chaos Space or your Charge of the Light Brigade and your opponent ashes you, you summon a free Chaos Ruler off of these 2, which is just dumb. And even if you're going second, this is just in here mainly because going second, this is the best hand trap you could play. It's a light monster in case it gets milled, but even if it gets banished because these monsters survive, you're getting rid of the monster you're negating, which is the main reason we play this. So all around, it's so powerful, it's worth playing, and sometimes the payoff, since you're opening with spell cards so often, is just too good to pass up. So we're playing that. For our extra deck, IAP is the main monster we want to end on turn 1, because the quick link effect will help us bring out an indestructible Zoroboros, who has a bunch of effects. First, gains 200 attack on top of its 3000 for every banished card, so every Gizmek coming back, both turns basically, plus Desires, is just going to let you one-shot your opponent through a monster. And Gizmek is awesome because this thing can trigger the other effect where if a monster is special summoned to a zone any link monster points to anywhere, you banish everything on the field. So now all of a sudden your opponent's board is wiped, and then this will come back next turn and then probably attack directly. So very powerful and kind of awkward to play around, but very easy to set up, because worst case, you Chaos Valk this to the grave, and then you're able to do this even if you weren't able to use the Gizmek to banish 8 more cards earlier. You're still banishing 8 during your opponent's turn, and then 8 more during your turn for 16 free cards off of this. So it quickly racks up tons of damage. And then IP is extra cool because you can use other monsters if your cards don't get negated and you get free bodies. Like oftentimes your rank 8 is going to be Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand, who has a negation effect and makes it so your Chaos Ruler doesn't get banished. Plus he's a light monster, which is a nice bonus. And then if, let's say, you get a Mothman out and maybe you use your Chaos Creator and it doesn't get negated, well, now you're able to easily bring out an Abyss Dweller instead of just any level 4 monster, and now you could shut down your opponent's graveyard, have a negate, have hand traps, and do the board wipe, which is just something people aren't used to playing against, and they can easily mess up not knowing what this deck does. So it's just a lot of fun being able to crush your opponent with things that they don't really expect, and yeah, they just lose out of nowhere once you bring the guy out with over 8,000 attack. Because you're playing Xyz, I like playing Zeus. You don't have to. It's not core to the deck, but if you can afford it, I think it is worth playing for its quick removal. And then I also like playing these guys specifically to out Dragoon and any other similar cards, just because your level 8 Synchro play can turn into a rank 4 play. You go attack over Dragoon, and it's very easy to do. Plus, there are lights in case something goes wrong and they all end up in the graveyard. And then for Link monsters, I wanted flexible cards that basically take any monsters to summon. Effectively, these guys do that, and then this guy needs a light monster plus anything else. This has a discard cost, which is sometimes useful. This lets you bring back your opponent's light monsters, which is a nice bonus. Easily makes it possible to summon Access Code Talker, and this is a fire for that. And then this, I was originally playing Barricade Board Blocker until I played this, and then I basically just wanted a monster that's easy to play. This needs any two guys that aren't tokens, which is very easy to fulfill. And then since I started playing Gamma, it's like, wow, this is a nice bonus. Sometimes it makes that hand trap live, even when I've gotten a board, so it's not something bad to play. Honestly, if the dark one comes out at some point, probably cut this and play the dark, but it's worth playing for now. You have somewhat of a flexible slot as long as it's a link monster you can easily play, but I didn't need 2 IPs or anything, so I decided to play that. At one point it actually was a second IP. Speaking of which, Nightmare Unicorn is one of the best things you could play as a generic Link 3 in this deck for IP. As an alternative, just shuffle your opponent's normal summon away, and sometimes that's going to end them. Plus, it's dark and a discard on top of that. We have this guy, which just like Zeus, if you don't have it, don't have to play it, but it will win you some games you couldn't otherwise, and it's easier to bring out at just 2+ effect monsters than, say, Boral Sword, which needs 3 or more monsters, and that was kind of the card that got replaced over time. And then finally, this card, Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, is going to be something that helps you play through your opponent's boards. It's easy to bring out 4 monsters, and then you can use your opponent's Dragoon or some other card with it. If they have a Link 2, you can use 3 of your guys plus that as well. So very easy to play. Has a Dark Ruler No More kind of effect on summon, and then prevents Graveyard Revival once per turn, and doesn't even get affected by stuff that doesn't specifically target her, which plays around the power creep. So light monster, easy to play, helps you play without Forbidden Droplet even more easily, and she's a lot more budget than that card. And with that, we've successfully built Chaos. Special thanks to anyone who watched the video in its entirety, and let's jump right into the alphabetical profile. Starting off with the main deck, we have 1 Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, 2 copies of Blackluster Soldier, the Envoy of the Beginning. We have double Chaos Dragon 𝗵𝗍𝗔𝗓, triple Chaos Valkyria, triple DD Crow, triple Danger Mothman, triple Effect Veiler, double Gizmek Orochi, the Serpentron Sky Slasher, triple Psyframe Gear Gamma, triple Raiden Hand of the Lightsworn, triple the Chaos Creator, 1 White Dragon Wyvern Burster, and 1 Psyframe Driver. For spells, we have triple Chaos Space, triple Charge of the Light Brigade, triple Pot of Desires, and a lone Rhoda, Reinforcement of the Army, for 40 cards in the main. Then for our extra, we have a single copy of Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon, an Abyss Dweller, number 39 Utopia, and S39 Utopia the Lightning. We have Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand, we have Dingirsu, and we have AA Zeus. And then for Link monsters, we have IP Masquerena, Nightmare Phoenix, Line of the Light Charmer, Lustrous, and Psyframe Lord Lambda as our Link 2s. Link 3, we have Nightmare Unicorn, and Link 4, we have Access Code Talker and Topologic Zeroboros. And finally, we have Underworld Goddess of the Closed World as our lone Link 5. That's it for now, but feel free to grab one of these videos on your way out. If you really enjoyed what you saw today, remember to subscribe to JD Gaming for more Yu-Gi-Oh videos. Thanks guys, this is JD Gaming, hope you guys enjoyed as always, and I'll see you guys next time.